From the moment I spotted the baby left behind on that business class seat, something inside me knew he'd been abandoned. Working as a flight attendant, I'd encountered plenty of unusual situations, but never had I found a tiny newborn left alone, bundled in a soft blue blanket with nothing but a note beside him. I remember how quiet the cabin felt as I read it. The handwriting was shaky, but her words were clear. Before we complete the story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. I'm a young mother who just cannot provide a good life for him. Please take him in, cherish him. I've started calling him Matthew, but that's not important. Just make sure that his last name is Harris. My heart twisted as I held him. It was such a raw and heartbreaking choice for a mother to make. I didn't know her story, but I knew in that moment that I wanted to be part of this baby's life. I didn't have any children of my own, and when I looked into his tiny, sleeping face, I felt an overwhelming urge to protect him. My husband, Dion, and I had always dreamed of adopting, and I felt that maybe somehow fate had put him in our lives. The adoption process was long and complex, but we named him Matthew, just as his mother had named him, and we kept Harris as his second name. Dion wanted us to give him our name. Lindsay, he said, this is our son now. As much as his birth mother wanted Harris to be his last name, she's not here. We can compromise and give it to him as a second name, but Thomas will be his last name. It was also important to us that Matthew grew up knowing about his mother's note. When he was 13, I finally shared that part of his story. Our boy took it well, nodding thoughtfully as he held the note. Did she love me? He asked, and I could only tell him what I believed was true. Yes, my love, I said. She loved you enough to make the hardest choice of all. Years passed, and Matthew thrived. He excelled in school, made friends easily, and became the center of our world. But I could always sense a lingering curiosity in him about where he came from, a desire to fill in the missing pieces. Then one afternoon my phone rang. I was on holiday, finally choosing to be on the ground instead of in the skies. It was an unknown caller, but when I picked up, a nervous voice stammered. Is this Lindsay, the flight attendant? I think you adopted my son. There was a pause as my heart skipped a beat. For the past 13 years, this was a call that I had feared. Yes, Matthew? He's my son now. The woman on the other end introduced herself as Rhonda. She sounded relieved and terrified all at once. She told me her story in halting sentences. How she'd left her father's house when she got pregnant at 19, been rejected by her boyfriend, and how she struggled alone in New York City. She said she regretted leaving Matthew every single day, but had never had the means to find him until now. Would you allow me to meet him? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Just once. I just want him to know why I did what I did. I hesitated, but finally agreed. I could tell that this was something Matthew needed, too, even if he didn't know it yet. A week later, we arranged a meeting at a quiet cafe. When Rhonda walked in, she looked nervous and held a small photo album in her hands. Matthew looked her over, curious but guarded. I didn't know what to expect, but I could feel my heart in my throat as I watched them. I would have rather sat through turbulence than this. Hi, Matthew, Rhonda began. I'm the woman who left you on that plane. I know it's unforgivable, but I did it because I thought you'd have a better life without me. Matthew sat quietly for a moment. Why didn't you just try to raise me? He asked. Rhonda's eyes filled with tears. I was homeless. My father kicked me out. I had no support. I didn't know how I'd survive, let alone care for you. But it's something I regret every day. The tension eased slightly, and I watched as they spoke. As we left, Matthew gave her a small nod. Thanks for coming back, I guess, he said. Today, Matthew is 23, and he's grown into an incredible young man. He's forgiven Rhonda, even if I'm the only one he calls mom. I love my job. It's been rewarding in many ways. But when I applied for a job as a flight attendant, I would never have guessed that I would find my son on a plane.